Hi there, it's Emmy. Today I'm going to tackle Simon at the Hermit Cave's new alphabet series of questions for tarot tubers. Um, yeah, let's just get right into it. The first one is about your favorite author. That's a trick question for me. I read a lot. I read mostly women, female writers, living authors, but I just had to pick a writer that has had a lot of influence on my personal life and some of my writing style, and that would be Jack Kerouac. Kind of pains me a little bit, not known for his great treatment of women, either on the page or perhaps in life, but is someone that came from a similar background that I did, from a New England factory town with a lot of Franco-American heritage, and somehow ended up engaged with Eastern thought and Buddhism and the literary world. I really love his thoughts on writing spontaneous prose and a lot of other stuff. So pains me a little bit. That's why I had to pick. That's someone I've been reading since I was about 17 and keep discovering new things. So that's where we sit. My biggest regret. Well, there's the butterfly effect, right? Where things you don't want to regret because of further things that came down the road. But I think what I would say is I wished that I had a practice for self-worth, self-love, self-confidence earlier in my life. It would have had a profound impact on me, and not just on me, but I think on the way I treated people and the way I interacted with the world, because a lot of my insecurities and wasn't like obvious self-loathing, but I always had a lot of walls up, and I especially had a deep-seated fear of trying anything for the first time and not instantly succeeding. And I think if I could have been kinder to myself, I would have been more adventurous. So that's my biggest regret. Yeah. Car, what I listen to. When I'm driving, I consume tons and tons of podcasts. Especially if I'm going on a long ride, I'll just listen to hours of stuff. It helps. Having podcasts really transforms my feelings about driving and being in a car and being stuck in traffic. Something about having someone tell me a story and talk to me helps the time go by in a much calmer manner for me than listening to music. So I really don't listen to music in the car very much at all. It's mostly podcasts of all different kinds. Yeah, I do listen to some tarot podcasts, some kind of more witchcrafty podcasts, some podcasts about poetry, history, true crime, and comedy and TV shows. Yeah, so podcasts in the car is my favorite thing. Oh, and if I have passengers, then it's either, if it's passengers, it might be silence and we're talking, or if there's passengers, there are some podcasts where we might overlap and listen together, like if I'm with my family in the car. Okay, yeah, that's that. Divination tool other than tarot. Okay, so I've been practicing something that I call the brain shuffle. There's no physical tool involved with this, but sometimes before I do a tarot reading, I will just kind of let my mind empty, and I feel like our brains are this giant catalog of images, and I'll just wait for something to flash by, trying not to use language until I can visualize what's appeared and then describe it. And I know that sounds really vague. This is a practice that I kind of learned from someone else who was more referring to it from a receiving messages from a guide or spirit scenario. That's not my personal frame of reference. So I think of it as the brain shuffle, where my brain is assembling and reassembling images. I think maybe an example I could give you is I was doing a reading for someone once, and the image that came to me was of a tree with the moon shining behind it and a wasp nest hanging from a branch. I don't know. So then I would interpret that as if it were an oracle card. And I just consider it a brain shuffle and kind of a randomizer of cataloged experiences and images in the brain. So yeah, so that's something I like to play with lately. That's that. Okay, Eat. What would I eat for my last meal? Okay. Maybe I'm being a little dark about this, but if I know it's my last meal, I would, depending on what the context of knowing that that's my last meal, I'm thinking I just might not have an appetite. Um, so I don't know. That's a funny question to me. I do associate that, unfortunately, with um, incarceration ending in, you know, an ending. Um, that idea of the last meal. So going to be a little hard to answer. Let's just say if I could eat something and not have any consequences, um, then it would probably be something rich and fatty and fried. And Simon said fish and chips. And you know what? Like that's, for me, that would be great. Or also a masala dosa from a very specific restaurant near me. Yeah, so either one of those. Like, I'm going to call it a meal with no consequences. So those are the two on my list. Oh boy, fears, rational and or irrational. So I'm someone who's always lived with a lot of constant worry that actually turns out was, anxiety, generalized anxiety. And it did get unmanageable for a while because I started to see things that I thought I had irrational fears about actually coming true in the world and in the news. So I had to spend some time working on that. Yes. So, fears for the planet and civilization are real. Um, we'll get later to how I keep those from consuming me. Something I think I have a rational fear of, but I let it become irrational, is I live with a day-to-day dread of the day that will come that I need to get an MRI. I've had nightmares. I've woken up in the middle of the night and had a fear that I have to get an MRI and someone is backing me into that tunnel. So I think that's a rational fear of closed spaces because that's just uncomfortable. But then I take it to a place where I'm in the MRI machine. There's a blackout, a catastrophic event that I survive, but everyone who controls the machine has not survived, and I'm just stuck in the tunnel until I'm sorry, I'm probably triggering someone. Oh my God. But do you see, this is my escalation process. So this is why I have to spend a lot of time. Actually, tarot is one of the things that helps me with this, escalating away from the worst case scenario situations, because that is how my mind works. So fears, rational and irrational, they're all the same to me. They're where I live, but where I try not to dwell. So yeah. Game favorite to play. Never been huge into board games. I come from a family that played a lot of cards, that were card players. Hey kitty, come on down. That were card players. And when my kids were younger or at other times, just sitting around and playing a game of cards with someone, just like simple games like Uno or Crazy Eights, is where conversation happened. Like not high stakes, like I'm just not interested in poker and gambling and stuff, but just having a game of cards where the conversation is happening around the table, I think, yeah, it's probably what I would consider a game. Holiday, favorite time of year. So this has shifted. I would have said Christmas many years ago, and it still is. I guess there's two ways that I look at holiday situations now. I don't celebrate traditional Christmas anymore. My kids are grown up. We don't have to play the game. A lot of things have shifted for me personally. I love the time. I love the dark half of the year. Ooh, I really love it. I consider now like that Yule season more of a reflective and personal quiet time for myself. It's nice if I can get together with people, but I don't feel that frenzy anymore of participating in the commercial parts of it. But I feel like it's a little more private than I used to feel it was. The holiday or season of the year that I do now find where I really like to be with other people is the summer solstice. I've been able to go to some events, like big community events, and they've just been really joyful and happy. And that's when I'd like to have that celebratory time. Now, I guess in my sick way, like it's also the return of the shortening of the days. So you feel like a sense of relief because I don't do well with the sun and the heat. But yeah, it's split in half. I like that summer holiday now as a like a large celebration with lots of people, and the winter darker times as more reflective and personal. So that's that. Interest someone might not know about. So let's see. I know I've mentioned that I'm involved in writing and that I'm a poet. I think maybe something else is I'm really interested in food culturally. I love watching the YouTube channel Tasting History with Max Miller, who's been on for several years. He started doing it during COVID and does recreates historical meals from old source texts and anything like that. I just find really fascinating. I grew up eating like the blandest, plainest food of all time, and as soon as I was off on my own, I would just get all these cookbooks that anything with like lots of spices and flavors, especially vegetarian food. I'm a terrible cook of meat products. Yeah, anything like that. I'm really fascinated with it, and I really like to learn all the history that goes with it. Yeah, really fascinated. Joy, something that brings me joy. I just really like the small, unexpected things in life, just like easy things. Am I a happy person? I don't know. That's kind of hard to quantify, but if I find a weird, okay, this brings me joy. It's like, this is just a dumb example. For a while, when I would be out for walks, I kept finding hot sauce packets on the ground, different brands, different varieties, different locations. For like a couple of weeks, everywhere I went, I would find a packet of like, hot sauce on the ground. That kind of thing just brings me joy. It's wacky. It takes me down a rabbit hole of why is this happening. Yeah, funny things like that. Sorry, the cat is about to knock this whole camera over. So he brings me joy 50% of the other time, and 50% of the time he drives me crazy. Okay, karaoke, what would I sing? Okay, I do not have a voice. And when I say that, I'm not being self-deprecating. I mean that physiologically, I have a very weak, non-present singing voice, which over the course of my life has brought me great pain, because I love nothing better than to be able to like be in a screamo band probably and just like let loose. But physically, my apparatus does not do that. Like Giselle said, like, you're not going to catch me in a karaoke situation where I'm even enduring that. But if I were, I can honestly say what would probably happen is I'd probably find like the softest, gloomiest song on the track and just bring the whole room down to the point where everyone would leave. So you don't want me at karaoke. Not, yeah, I'd probably sing some sad gothy thing in a quiet, wispy tone. Everyone would leave. Okay. Laugh. What makes me laugh? Lots of things make me laugh. I love really stupid silliness, humor. I like strange non sequiturs, and I think one of the comics I like that does that really well is Patton Oswalt. Right now, I've been following him on Instagram for a while, and he must be at a job somewhere where he's filming somewhere, and he's just posting these really strange videos in a character of someone that he made up, where the other day he was yelling at a snail, like lying with his face on the ground yelling at a snail. Yeah, makes me laugh. Despite, I guess this goes back to the thing with my fears, and that's where I dwell all the time. Like, comedy and laughter has always been really important to me. My father loved watching Monty Python in the 70s, and my mother would say, turn that off. We don't want the kids watching it. So Monty Python, Laugh-In that was on in the 60s and 70s, even Mad Magazine, like he introduced us as kids to Mad Magazine. So I kind of like that. Yeah, just comedy and laughing in general. Okay, movie that I would watch over and over again. So can I have a double? I'm going to give you a double feature because these are movies that I have watched over and over again. And I wouldn't pick two, except that these came out around the same time. And they're the polar opposite of each other. So I'm going to have a double feature. And the first movie in the double feature is going to be Pee-wee's Big Adventure from 1985, which was Tim Burton's full-length directorial debut. And speaking of silliness and things that make me laugh, yeah, that movie is really dumb and it just cracks me up to pieces. It's one of those things, if I were home in bed with a fever, I would probably still to this day put it on, and I don't know. I can't explain it. And I don't feel like I need to. And then number two in my 1980s double feature is going to be the 1987 film Wings of Desire by Wim Wenders, which is probably the complete opposite of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But that's, you know, I hope people know that movie. It was shot in Berlin. It's trilingual. It's just, I just love it to pieces. It's moody. I don't know. It's all the things. So I would watch those two as a double feature with a big bowl of popcorn. Okay. Nature. I grew up as a beach and shore and ocean kid, and I just have no interest in that anymore. I mean, it's lovely, but I can't stand the sun. I need shade. I need cooler temperatures. So I am woodland all the way. And especially there's a preserved land very close by me that is 3 environments kind of in one small space, which is kind of a light woodland, a big open meadow that I've been told has been being kept cleared for hunting purposes for about 10,000 years based on archaeological evidence. And then that kind of all goes down almost like a ravine to a salt marsh area that goes down to a protected part of the ocean, so like an inlet. So yeah, I need trees, I need green things, I need grasses and wildflowers. That's what I like. That's what I like these days. Optimistic. This one was probably the hardest question on this list for me. It's not that I'm a pessimist. I mean, I get up each day happy and grateful for every day, but it's been really, I think we all know, it's been a struggle. And I think at the beginning of COVID, despite just the horror of it and the horror of the disease, you know, there was this little window where it seemed like people were coming together to fight a common thing, and it seemed like we were learning lessons about slowing down some of our activities and the positive impact on nature. And to see that swing so completely away from that again has been kind of a downer. It's been a downer. And compound that with cost of living crises, war in Ukraine, and all kinds of, I mean, what can we say about the United States right now? I mean, every day is a horror show. What I can be optimistic about, you know, I can't control who takes power unmorally and unjustly from others, but I guess I can have the optimism that those people are not the majority. They do not represent the majority. And the more younger people I know, I am optimistic that the majority of younger people do not have that mindset. But I know there are younger people who do get sucked into it as well. But that's my only optimism, is that the current powers don't represent the majority. So let's see where that can take us. Again, that was the hardest question on the list. Okay, Pip. I don't use Pip decks that much, but I've started to, so I don't really have a favorite one yet, except last year I did get the Radiant Tarot, And it was the first time I had a deck with pips where I felt like I liked the pips as much or more than the other cards in the deck. And I will say this comes with, see, I mean, this is just not really for me, but I still really like the deck. And it comes with a really great guidebook. So this has kind of been my entry into using pips more, and I am really interested to continue with that because not having the scene on the cards has been really kind of liberating in some ways. So yeah, so just looking forward to working with pips more. Quality time. What does quality time look like for me? If I'm with other people, quality time usually means like we went for a walk or went for a ride and we chatted. You know, that's, again, like I'm not one for big ventures. Yeah, I don't have to, like, we don't have to go to a night, we don't have to go to a nice restaurant. We can, but we don't have to go to a fancy restaurant. It doesn't have to be like an extravaganza. We can just hang out. That's really what my quality time is, even with myself too. If I went for a walk, if I walked around the block and found a hot sauce packet on the ground, the room that I'm in now is set up where I can kind of act peacefully and at my leisure. I could burn incense and flip for my tarot cards or read. So yeah, that's what my quality time is. It's when I'm paying attention. On on my social media accounts, I think there's the impression that I'm antisocial, and the real reason is that if I have gone and done something with people, my phone is put away, my camera is put away. I went to visit my daughter last week. I mean, I did take a picture of us together, but I don't post that stuff because I don't generally, I respect other people's boundaries with what they want posted. And if I'm hanging out with people, I'm really trying to be present, and I'm not documenting that part of the event with my phone. I'm also terrible at photographing people because they're not rocks or flowers or gravestones, and they move around, right? And I don't like things that are posed. So it's 50-50, right? I'm trying to be present, but I'm also a terrible photographer. Okay, quality time. Reincarnation. Okay, so this one is funny because my mind immediately jumped to one thing, and then the other responses I've watched so far, people all assumed they'd be coming back as a human. My immediate thought was, I would like to come back as, milkweed popped into my head first, but I'm not sure this is going to play out scientifically the way that I have imagined it. But I come back as a milkweed. I'm a milkweed pod. I'm a little seed in the milkweed pod. I float away on the wind. I fall on the ground and I grow into a new milkweed plant, and then a butterfly feeds on me. That's my reincarnation dream. Okay, that's all. Okay, sacred. What is sacred to me? I guess nature. It's a weird word for me, I will say. Yeah, I think nature and just the obligation of our being alive and respecting other people, and I don't know. It's a word I'm wrestling with and thinking about a lot lately, and I am not sure that I have figured out what the answer to that one is yet. So that's all I have to say. Tarot. I don't remember what that, favorite tarot deck at the moment. What am I using right now? I should have pulled something out. I didn't pull a deck out. Hold on. You didn't see that. Okay. I've been using this one a lot. The Conrad's Roses and Lilies facsimile. I am, cycling through, making sure I work with all my decks in an organized way, but really I just keep coming back to kind of standby decks. Just to pare things back. I mean, when I'm working through something specific, I might, for example, pull a card in a reading that seems like a very important card to the reading and something I want to explore further. Then there's a couple of decks I go to where I might put one version of that card out for meditation, or maybe look through a couple of guidebooks and different interpretations. But I really just keep returning to basics when I feel like I'm using the multi-deck universe as a little bit of a learning crutch. So that's that. I had forgotten what the question was. Okay. Unforgettable moment. I've had a lot of those, although they're not as dramatic as they might seem, but I guess something that's happened a few times and they've been kind of memorable. So I'll tell you about one. So I used to play in orchestras, like classical music orchestras. And one of my favorite pieces of music is The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. And I was able to play that in an orchestra. And I was playing like a not dramatic or like part, like the instrument part I was playing was like the second bass clarinet part. But there was something so visceral about, there's one thing to listen to a piece of music and it's a different thing to be seated in the middle of it. And I was sitting kind of in the middle of the orchestra. I had like the drums and the timpanis behind me and like the basses and brasses and things to my left and the violins to the right. And as that piece of music went on, like time and space dissolved. And I think when you've practiced something and know it well enough, you can kind of, it's almost like when you're driving your car somewhere and you get to the destination and you don't remember driving. That's what happened there. But it was definitely a suspension of time and space that happened where I was present but not present, and the orchestra had become an organism, and I guess it was the complete removal of the self, which I thought was a really interesting thing to happen in a musical performance. And I've had like weird things like that. They're not weird. I mean, I've had those kind of moments a few times in my life, and much later, only a couple of years ago, when I was reading The Spiral Dance and Starhawk was talking about casting a magic circle, there was a specific way she described that, and I was like, that is what playing in an orchestra could be like sometimes, or vice versa. So yeah, so that kind of stuck in my head. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever. Okay, vacation. I'm not a good relaxer. I mean, I'm kind of like medium key all the time. I don't really like the kind of vacations where I go sit somewhere. The last few years and even like pre-COVID, I tend to go on a trip that's, I don't want to call it educational, but where there's something, but like where there's a specific goal. I've gone to things that are like Writer's Week. I've gone to a tarot week. That to me is a vacation away from my real life. I feel like I can relax at home or I can relax somewhere else, but if I'm going somewhere on vacation, yeah, I like there to be a good focus. Haven't been able to really travel in a while. I think someone else said they love being somewhere else but don't love getting there, and I will say I don't travel very well. This isn't one of the questions, but if any magical object from the Harry Potter universe could be real, if there were port keys, I'd be everywhere in the world as soon as I could. I just don't travel well, but that's that. So yeah, vacations, I think like small cities are good for me. Anywhere that I can drive from where I live in between like 3 and 7 hours, I'm cool with going. So yeah, I've been trying to branch out more locally and try places near me that I haven't spent time. Well-being. How do I support my well-being? Yeah, well, we talked about the fears, and so I have to do a lot of work to make sure that's not where I'm dwelling, that I'm not dwelling in anxiety. I am someone who, at different points in my life in the last 15 years, I have, gone to therapy, to talk therapy. I did need anxiety medication for a short period of time. And I say that I think medication is wonderful. It's just that for my particular situation, it was kind of circumstantial and I just needed to be on it for a while. So I'm not saying that my goal was to get off the medication. I just don't want that to be misunderstood. That just happened to be um, what I was going through. I needed the help to kind of come off the ledge and settle back into practices that would help me with my more moderate anxiety that doesn't really generally need to be medicated. Yeah, so working more with meditation. I did think of some, I guess in this context, something that has become a little sacred to me is the morning. And as someone who used to like to sleep till noon, this is shocking. But I do like to get up early in the morning, generally a little before dawn, and I have my small, like not overwhelming rituals that I do in the morning, including lighting a small candle, burning some incense, sitting with tarot, meditating for a few minutes, and just trying to be grounded and present, um, and accepting, whatever emotions or thoughts I'm having, accepting them and trying to be present with them instead of trying to push things away, because that is where some of my anxiety was coming from, was disassociating and distancing. And yeah, so it's been a little bit of a travel, a little bit of a travel for me. But I find that working with mornings and setting up little things for myself has really helped over the last few years. Yeah, so there's that. X-ray. Have I ever had X-rays? Oh, for heaven's sake! Oh my gosh! So my mouth has been a dental disaster since I was a kid. Not just cavities, but like broken teeth and just like all kinds of drama. So yeah, lots of X-rays of this. I think I broke my little finger a few years ago. I know I had like a mild break in one of my pinkies. My latest X-ray was in December. I've got like pain in one of my feet that we thought was a broken bone. So I got to look at my foot bones with a podiatrist who was very, very excited about foot bones. I will say that did bring me joy. Um, Looking at the bones of my feet and talking to a doc. I don't know. I'm not someone who seeks like fun times with doctors, just to be clear. I can't remember what there's a syndrome for that. No. I just mean when there's like a technical process that someone's really excited about, like I get interested and like to ask them questions about it. Yeah, so lots of X-rays, not too many broken bones, several broken teeth, and all kinds of stuff. Okay, yourself. When do I feel most comfortable being myself? Well, this is a funny thing that happened during COVID, is that because I was able to work from home. I was very fortunate. I was able to keep working. I didn't lose my job, and I wasn't an essential worker. So, I was doing working from home. But all of a sudden, I was the same person 24 hours a day instead of switching on and off, variations of my persona. And I'm finding that a little bit challenging to undo, and also at the same time making sure I don't undo it too much. So I think I feel more comfortable being myself than I ever have in my whole life. So I guess that's where I feel the most comfortable being myself, is as older me. I don't have it with me, but I found a picture that someone had taken of me. I was like probably like 28. And I know how I felt about myself when I was 28. And I probably like could barely stand to have someone take my picture. And then I look at that picture and I'm like, what was I thinking? I couldn't see what other people could see, right? So just trying to be less self-conscious all the time, less beating myself up all the time. I'm finally, but that was one of my blessings from the COVID time and from tarot, was to spend time working through that. So yeah, I feel like I know that when I moved to New York, I toned down a lot of my modes of dress, which used to be a little wacky, because I never wanted to draw any attention to myself. So it's kind of funny now that I don't know. I would make a good spy, is what I've been told, because I'm completely unnoticeable. I'm invisible. I could sneak in anywhere. I could become an operative. Okay. That got weird. Okay, the last one, zodiac. I am a Leo sun sign. I do not particularly relate to that, at least not anymore. Maybe when I was younger I might have. People are sometimes surprised because for a Leo, I'm kind of quiet. I'm a Taurus rising and a Scorpio moon. I was raised by 2 Aquarius parents, and I've always wondered what what a role environment might have on development. Of course, I don't know that gets talked about enough in astrology. I don't really follow astrology. I love Rob Brezhny. I love getting the horoscopes he puts out in my mailbox, but I don't know how much I subscribe to it. I don't pay tons of attention to it. A couple of years ago, my writer friends, we've been meeting every week since COVID started, online on a Zoom. We're still doing it. But a couple of years ago, somebody started talking about the Enneagram thing, which I realize, I think it's loaded with a lot of connotations from some conservative aspects of things. I'm not really sure, but we all went online and took the test together, because I think we were talking about the Myers-Briggs personality tests, and we took the Enneagram test together, and I came out as a 9, which is the peacekeeper, and the downside of which can be, you keep everything great on the surface and then erupt later. That's the dark side of that. But it's more like the Temperance card, whatever that would be in the zodiac. So I feel like that's more accurate. So whatever that system is, I don't know that much about that system, except we were kind of following it for a little while and thinking that it met our personalities a little better than some of our astrology stuff. So yeah. So that's that. And I definitely talked longer than I meant to. If you've responded and you leave me a note, could you please just tell me that you have also made a video? Because when I don't know what's wrong with me. When I search hashtags on YouTube, I get like 3 matches, and then they start putting irrationally algorithmed selections in that don't make any sense. So I've watched Simon's, Giselle, Madwitch's, and Robin over at Toadstool Tarot. So I hope to find more of these. And thanks for watching.